Chapter 22, People who are struck and they have to work hard to get up. When Yuan Zhan returned, Yan Mo had already controlled up his emotions. Because of the luxury of getting calm, it is difficult to get into anger. Yan Mo struggled from nothing to the subsequent fame and fortune. After he was 30, he was used to others to holding him on a pedestal, aunties praising him, other look at him, and fear him. Even in the last period of his time in prison, he did not suffer any pain. On the contrary, the prisoners and the guards around him have been caring for him because of his medical skills. He did not have the opportunity to escape death. Although he had offended many people, he had saved many people over the years. Coupled with his first-hand medical skills, many people have proposed to allow him to be a sinner. The only treasure that he cherishes the most and cares the most has disappeared. His will to survive is not great. Moreover, with his personality, he was thrown out of the top tank. If he does not retaliate and get it back or does not pull all the people who he can pull into the water, how can he be willing to be abused? Therefore, although he had resentment when he died, it was worthwhile, except that he felt sorry for himself. But he did not expect that he would open his eyes again in another world with his breath, and in order to let him reform, God gave him a temptation he could not refuse. He soon realized the cruelty of the world, but even if he was taken back by the primitive people here, he did not really feel a sense of crisis. He always felt that with his ability, he wanted to mix in this primitive society. It's not easy to get wind and water, fame, and people to admire him. He has been observing these primitive people high above the ground. He, in fact, really treats himself as a god. He didn't even look at the body he had now, he only used it as a tool to hold his own soul, so he was not particularly sad even if it was abused, cut and wounded again and again. He despised these primitive people and he even looked down on the guide, just as he despised the laws of the original world. But over time, the facts tell him again and again, what if he can't look down on people here? Even if he knows a lot more people than here, he has to see if he can have a chance to pour it out. Before that, it was very easy for people to insult him, bully him, kill him. He didn't even dare to fight because he was afraid of more pain and feared that he would die. The once high-ranked person fell into the dusty ground and finally realized that everything in the past was nothing but a mirror. Now that everything in the deep hole is real, it's not surprising if this psychological gap can change a weak-willed person and forced him to go crazy. Yan Mo is not crazy, he is more calm than ever. After a moment of sitting, he pulled out the wristband and prepared to improve it. What he needed now was not a bell-whistling wristband, but a bag that could hold things. In the past, he was too stupid, he thought he was smart, and he thought he was in control of everything. In fact, he was only a self-conscious person, he couldn't even eat enough food, he was still staying with new society but he still held the glory of the past life, even if he also thought that he was attached to this body and the world should be around the self-propelled force. At this point, he saw Yuan Zhan and Yuan Diao next door carrying a pile of fresh meat. Yuan Zhan had a deeper understanding when he was carrying a bulging animal skin wrapped in his hand. "What are you doing?" Yuan Zhan saw the little slave walk to the door and sat on the ground trying to point the fire pit. Yuan Diao and Yuan Zhan nodded and crossed the village and went back to their tent. "Fire, eat." Thanking him for his physical memory, thank him for his wildlife experience, otherwise he wouldn't even know how to get anywhere. Yuan Zhan laughed, kicked him, threw the parcel at the door of the tent, took the slate on the water tank, and unloaded the fresh meat on his shoulder. He said, "Don't do it, Cao Ting will start the fire every day, do you think she is lit up with fire? If you want fire, let her come and bring the fire." Cao Ting, which was busy at the door next door, heard her name. She raised her head and smiled and waved. When she saw what Yan Mo wanted to do, she came in with a piece of burning wood to start the fire. Yan Mo grabbed 2 stones and looked at Cao Ting to help him ignite the fire. Cao Ting looked at the 2 stones in his hand and sneered. "Hey, Even smart people will do stupid things. We haven't used flintstones for a long time. What? Just then his brain was paralyzed for a while. When Cao got a fire pit lit, Yan Mo suddenly rushed up and hugged Yuan Zhan's leg, and he took a bite on his calf. Yuan Zhan, who was drinking cold water. Yuan Diao at the next door unfortunately saw this scene and broke out laughing. Did you not feed him today? You are going to end up as food for your little slave. Hey! Tasting dirt. Yan Mo wiped his mouth and wanted to see what he could do around him. Yuan Zhan bent over and picked up the little slave who hadn't had a long flesh. He went to the door of the tent and asked him to sit on the ground, and he went to take the parcel out of the tent and stuff it into his arms. All the things you wanted are inside. Then he stared at his head. Yan Mo took the package from Yuan Zhan's hand and opened the package. Yuan Zhan looked at his hand and looked at the little slave who dared to bite his own master. He suddenly felt that the little slave sitting there had changed. Of course, he does not understand the word anger. He felt that the little slave seems to be different from before he left, just like, want to open the general? Forget it, it seems that it is not bad, so he did not expect this slave to actually be a slave for him, as long as the other party can warm the nest. There are a lot of things in the parcel. There are a few pieces of broken skin, a bag of coarse salt, and some animal bones, some hard shell fruits, 2 dry animal eyes. Yan Mo picked up the 2 deliberately dried eyeballs and shook. What do you want me to do with this thing? Yuan Zhan, who took the salt out and took it, sprinkled it with fresh meat and replied, eat. What's delicious about eating eyeballs? Yan Mo's mouth twitched. That is the eye of the eagle. If you eat it, it can make your eyes look farther and you can see more clearly at night. Is it? Yan Mo doesn't believe it. People here are superstitious. His memory has no knowledge of this stuff. The boy's body is still young, and he has not been exposed to more beastly superstition. Won't eat. No. I didn't. You eat one. Thank you. Would you let me *CK you again tonight? Yan Mo blue ribs broke out. Didn't you say before you left that you won't touch me again? Yuan Zhan didn't force him. Oh, then forget it. As early as Yan Mo took out the pair of eyes, he began to look at Yuan Diao, and the man looked he couldn't wait to come and grab him. He shouted at the door next door, Dajan, I want you to do it. You can give me one of Eagle's eyes, or even a half will be okay. Yuan Zhan got up and grabbed the 2 eyes and stuffed one in his mouth. Then he pinched Yan Mo's mouth and stuffed the other one at Yan Mo's mouth. Yuan Diao was thinking in the next door, Yuan Zhan is not the same brother. Cao was paralyzed, the young boy daring and lowered her head continue working. Yan Mo almost spit it out. The eyeball was suffocating him and his psychologically coping, but looking at the angry and sullen expression of the man next door, Yan Mo restrained the urge to vomit. After chewing and eating the dried eyeball, he swallowed them. Is it delicious? Yuan Zhan's throat twitched and he turned back to him, asking him. Yan Mo's complexion is calm, not bad, chewing it is quite tenacious thing. Generally, the eyeballs should be soaked in water, and eagle eyes is different. Oh! Feeling a disgustingly panic, Yan Mo endured it. I will accept it and I will endure it. It is better to eat this stuff than to eat human flesh. There was a small parcel in the big parcel. When he opened it, Yan Mo almost screamed. Is this the herb that you brought back? Yan Mo looked at the plants that had been chopped and rotted, and when he touched one of them with a hand, he almost vomited blood. Yuan Zhan looked at him and nodded. Yeah, it's all there. Can you see if it can be used? Yan Mo grabbed the plants that could not be used. Well, all the 90% of the plants. Why didn't you pack them with some soil on the roots when you brought them back? Even if you are afraid of trouble, you can dry them, then you can put them all together in a row. You didn't tell me how to do it. It took a lot of time to find the plants and was wrapping them up. The things that were brought back to the place were actually rejected. Yuan Zhan was not happy about that. This is common sense. Okay, this is not common sense, at least for people here, this is not common sense. Yan Mo knew that he had made a mistake of taking the parcel for granted. When he said it to Yuan Zhan, he thought he would be just like the original world farmers or the mountain people. Back then he would just give them a clear picture. As long as the herb really exists in the local place, the farmers and the mountain people would be able to find and bring back the wild herbs he wants. They did not require him to pay more attention to what they have to deal while getting the herb. Even those who deal with herbs are more sophisticated in preserving them than him. But Yuan Zhan is not the experienced herb collector. Maybe he doesn't even have the concept of collecting herbs. Cannot criticize him. Yan Mo wanted to express thanks to encourage him. Think about how he used to praise those students, especially those stupid students. I did not explain clearly. This is not your fault and you did not run these plants. I am not sure they can be used, but this time I will not admit it's anyone's mistake, and as long as this way can be improved I can forgive all the mistake. The latter sentence was quietly whispered by Yan Mo. Then he looked at a parcel, a lack of leaf and roots, and began pruning the decaying plant and asked, "This plant? Where you got them? There was no tribe around it." Yuan Zhan naturally heard the last sentence spoken by Yan Mo. He didn't mind. He only asked, "What is this? What is the effect? Can it cure the wound?" Yan Mo stroked the plant with a tribute. "This is licorice, the old and wild. The herb is the better and it is even praised as the king of the medicine. Hey, this means that its status is equivalent to the priest in amongst the herb, and most of the prescriptions will have it in them. So powerful." Yuan Zhan was surprised, then he was happy. The licorice can be found 2 days away from the tribe. There is no danger around it. There is a large patch of it on the grassland, mixed with other weeds, but it is not difficult to recognize. Do you remember the place? I remember it. Yuan Zhan nodded. Great. Yan Mo cut a piece of the good part of the licorice into his mouth. The familiar sweetness immediately filled his mouth, and the owner of the bristles, he beckoned Yuan Zhan over and stuffed him with a piece. Chew, and then spit out the remaining. The sweetness of things experienced here and sweetness from licorice roots are different. With the unique taste and it being a plant, this degree of sweetness can be enjoyed. For Yuan Zhan, who usually eats sweet things, it is enough to make his eyes pop. Sweet. Delicious. The wicked youth smiled happily, and Yan Mo wanted him to spit out the stringy stuff, but Yuan Zhan did not spit, he swallowed them directly. He didn't think that the weeds that he had dug out according to the painting turned out to be this sweet. If he knew that, he would dig more. Do not eat this stuff, it is not food, is a drug. Licorice root will have no problem if swallowed. You can chew it when you have cough or sore throat, but do not take it as candy. What's a candy? In the future, spit it out. Then you won't feel the licorice tastes as good. Yuan Zhan couldn't help but look for the rest of the licorice in the package. Yan Mo patted his hand. Licorice is useful. Only the roots and stems can be used. The leaves are useless, don't mess with them. But you can put a little of licorice while cooking, and licorice can also be used as a food seasoning. Yuan Zhan immediately said, "No barbecue tonight, we cook meat with this stuff." In fact, you can do the same with barbecue, but it will be better to pickle the meat first and then taste it. The joy of finding licorice made Yan Mo also interested in all kinds of cooking methods. We will change the way of cooking tonight. Yuan Zhan was also very excited, and after scanning around he changed his mind temporarily. No, it's still the same. You put the usable part away for later. Yan Mo immediately understood what he meant, and suddenly he felt a bit strange. Still in modern society, the big boy who has grown even still cautious than he was, a primitive man who said he did not mind the carelessness? If that was the case, there will not be so much experience in the human race. Oh, the sky is still bright, I will show how to relieve the pain in your legs first, and we can't eat right now. Yan Mo put down the parcel. He thought, maybe he could show the golden needle in front of this young man. After all, if he wants to use it in the future, he will not be able to hide it the other side. But he has to think about how to explain the origin of this set of gold needles, and where it was hidden before. No, not for the time being. Hey,